I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, looks like we all fit in this room. Great. Okay, yesterday you got sent to you the meeting minutes from the March 8th meeting, so we will begin as we normally do with the approval of the last meeting's minutes.
I did review those minutes shortly after Jen prepared them and didn't see any issues with them, so I make a motion to approve the March 8th meeting minutes as written.
Okay. I have a motion by Clark and a second by Jeff to approve those meeting minutes. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. Next up, our regular monthly reports. Brett Barton. Brett's got a request for us this month.
I do. I'll run you through my numbers real quick, and I'll get to my grant question. So this morning we have 71 clients on our program, 5 are on CTP and 2 juveniles, and we have nobody on the pre-child through this program. I finished up my grant. I'll be submitting that to my board next Thursday, but there was one question on this year's grant that kind of took me for a little bit of a loop that we haven't had to answer in the past. So the question is the program able to sustain operations, at least partially, in the absence of grant funding? My only 2 options there are yes or no. I went ahead and answered yes to that, which led to a follow-up question. Indicate how support for the program will be encouraged, attained, or continued in the event that grant funding is reduced or discontinued. So my answer to that currently is we have the ability to sustain current operations for only 1 year without grant funding. By being economically prudent in the past, our current project income balance gives us the luxury to keep operations afloat for an additional calendar year. Clinton County government does not have the resources to sustain our program once our project income is exhausted. So I just want to know what the council thinks about my answer on that. Do you agree that going forward, if grant funding was eliminated, that the county could pick up the tab on that? I can give you current numbers on that if you'd like also. So
What is the approximate annual budget?
my annual budget is $699,000.
Yeah.
And the grant covers about 31% of that.
Okay. So I think what Brett was hoping to have was something that was a little more official, where it wasn't him putting his opinion on there
Yes.
that the council couldn't fund the program. He would rather us be on the record as saying that that's not a budget we can afford to add under our current revenue streams, which I think is a fair statement.
I think it's a fair statement. I think it's a program that we'd want to really rack our brains to try to support, but I don't think we can make any kind of commitment now.
Yeah, I would feel comfortable with some sort of motion saying that given current revenues or current revenue projections, it would be unlikely that the county, I wouldn't say never, maybe we shouldn't say never, but it would be unlikely that the county could support the ongoing operations of community corrections. If y'all would agree with that.
Are they talking about doing away with the grant, or?
If I had to read between the lines, I think this is geared mostly towards some larger counties. I don't think they're coming after the smaller counties, to be honest. But it's a question that's going to go across the board.
Obviously, if that came to pass and was a reality, we'd have some really tough discussions to have. We have to, I mean, it is we couldn't just let it go away. We have to do some really nimble reprioritizing, I think.
Well, 30% of that budget would be what, 180, 200,000?
Yeah.
We're about 230,000.
Yeah.
We don't have that just laying around.
It's definitely because it's not.
I think that, so the user, the project income, what the people pay that are in the program funds the rest, correct?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. Good question, Joe.
Our current project income is about $450,000. So that could sustain us literally just over a year probably without any grant funding as we continue to collect these. So worst case scenario, if this did happen, we would have at least a year to make some decisions.
Yeah, we definitely got a hardship, no doubt about that. We could not. We couldn't, it was certainly a hardship.
With current budgets and current revenues, we wouldn't have any room to support that at the level that currently the grant does. So I think we would truthfully be answering that, no, we do not have the revenue as currently constructed. So I'd like for the council make a motion to that effect that Brett can then be accurately reflecting his answer. Hopefully this is all, is targeted towards other counties and is not an eventuality we have to deal with, but does anybody feel comfortable making that motion? I'll make the motion. Okay. I have a motion by Jeff and a second by Mike that council's position is that in the current revenue forecast, we would not have the revenue to support community corrections in the absence of the grant. Okay, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0.
Very good, thank you. Any additional questions?
They'll just keep us posted. If that starts to turn from smoke to fire, let us know. Okay. You also have in your report Nancy's probation update. Another good month with 0. So we're off to an outstanding first quarter there, with only $1,050 in juvenile detention costs for the first quarter of the year. Okay, that moves us on to new business. We have a few items of kind of an administrative nature here to deal with. The first of which is the Kirkland Library Board appointment. You'll recall we did this last year with Emily. We went through this process, but Emily has had to resign that position, and we have a new suggested appointment. Kylie Powers. Heidi Turner, the director of the Kirkland Library, had sent us, Janet forwarded to us yesterday, sort of a letter of recommendation and support of Kylie that hopefully you all had a chance to read. We need to do this to get that, to prevent that seat from being vacant. And so they have sent the correct form that we need to sign off on. I need to find out where you have that by chance. Here it is right here. Okay. Yeah, so this would be the council's appointee to the board, and we would just need to approve and sign this form for them to have on file with the state. Typically, we've kind of started the process in last year where we'd like to have that person come before the board and or before the council and meet us. Kylie's schedule does not allow that given our meeting time, and so the request is that we go ahead and approve her appointment to the board, and then I think maybe John would probably try to reach out to her on his own, or any other council member that would like to reach out and get to know Kylie a little more personally can do so after the fact. So if you all feel comfortable with moving forward with Heidi's recommendation for Kylie, I'd entertain a motion to approve that appointment.
Motion to approve the appointment.
Can I have that motion from Jake?
Second.
I think I got the second from Joe. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. John is going to abstain, correct? Okay. Okay, next up, we have a few, this is the time of the year when we approve our CF1s, which is the compliance form for any tax abatements that the county has given to a business in the county. We have a few that we've been doing for a number of years. And I think at a courtesy to Kathy, who's joined us here today from Phillips Saw and Tool, I would like to move that one up to deal with that one first. We've got two, now it's Real Estate Holdings, and then I believe there's another one for Phillips Saw and Tool. So if you'll flip in your packet to those, and we've got Phil's here to speak on behalf of Phillips Saw and Tool. So Phil, anything that you'd like to, statements you'd like to make or explanations you'd like to give?
Yeah, just kind of a brief statement here. So last year's presentation is pretty similar to this year's presentation. The company is pretty close to where it needs to be. Due to COVID, there were some delays. There was a very expensive piece of machinery that was ordered from Germany, and they were shut down due to COVID. So that was scheduled to arrive in 2020, I believe, and it was actually delivered in 2021. So the Phillips Saw and Tool is going to be asking for a 1-year extension on the tax payment due to that 1-year delay, essentially, in receiving the equipment. Kathy's here; she can speak, answer any questions you might have. But that's for Phillips Saw and Tool, and basically for Phillips Saw and Tool and for the others that I'm here to present on, COVID's been a real problem. Everything, supply chain issues have caused delays. There's been a bunch of setbacks, and business is tough right now. So that's all I've got for Phillips Saw and Tool.
If you look at the numbers, the assessed values were basically on par. Maybe a little bit low employment, it's a tough employment market right now. It's been the position of the council as long as I've been on the council, going back even through the Great Recession, that, tough economic times with unexpected general economy-wide difficulties, that we've never penalized a local company that was attempting to make their best effort to meet the terms of a development agreement. So just to give that as a background. You did receive in the packet, there was a note of explanation that kind of further elaborated on the timing of the delivery of the equipment that was abated, and talks about the numbers and costs of that. And then lastly, we had a suggested, Phil, I may ask you to elaborate on this. We have a resolution or a request for a resolution. And I guess this merely is formalizing, I think, what you just explained about the necessity of extending the time within which the equipment was installed.
Right.
Kathy, my quick question to you, has the equipment arrived and been installed at this point?
It has finally,
Okay.
yes, Alan, it has. And like you mentioned, our employment numbers are down, but it's not for lack of effort, as anyone in this room can attest. If you drive down the interstate or anywhere else, you know that everyone is trying to hire. And we are exhausting employment agencies as well as, employees that might know someone. We're probably down about 50% of our workforce. And normally Jordan, my son, would be here to represent us, but he's in production and has been for the last 2 or 3 months solely right now, just because of the lack of, it's not because we're not trying, it's because people either will not show up for work or will not pass drug tests, or, it's just unfortunate. But definitely our equipment is here, and this is the 1-year extension that we're asking for.
Yeah, and I'll elaborate on the resolution. So the purpose of the resolution is to formalize the extension. It's probably okay to just do it without a resolution, but we want to make sure that the auditor's office has what they need. If local government finance shows up and starts asking, what's going on with these, this was supposed to go for this long and now it's gone longer, what was going on there? If we have an actual resolution adopted, that's, a paper trail that we can point to. So that's the purpose of that.
Let's start with that, I think, before we approve the actual CF1. So we have in front of us a resolution. We probably need a resolution number for that.
2202-3.
2022-03? Okay. A resolution approving and confirming extension of period for completion of the project. So that is, quick summary, just extends until the end of 2021, the time period at which they had to get that equipment in. So as Phil explained, formalizing what we had talked about. This discussion came up last year. You may remember we had as he referenced, a very similar discussion. At that point, we didn't know when it was going to come in. This formalizes that agreement that the council gave last year to allow that extension. So do I have a motion to approve the ordinance 2022-03?
Second.
I think I've got Clark was fastest on the draw there with the second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. With that,
6-0.
6-6, yes, Jeff, abstaining, I'm sorry. With that in place, let's move to the actual CF1s. We have 2 of those. The first of which is Phillips Solid Tool. You can see all the numbers on there. I accept a motion or entertain a motion to mark Phillips Solid Tool in substantial compliance. Okay, a motion by Jake, a second by Mike to approve the CF1. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. And then a second one for Chenalik Real Estate Holdings LLC for the actual real estate. Similar numbers. I have a motion by Jake and a second by John. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. Okay. Thank you, Phil, and thank you, Kathy, for coming. Now we also have, there's 2 sets of CF1s for NHK. I want to deal with those next. You received a couple yesterday as a kind of an addendum to our regular packet. Those are actually the ones that are filed with the city, and they're marked FYI, just to show that they have been filed. That's for the NHK facilities here in town. You also, in the original packet, received the CF1 document for the State for 28 I-65 project. And I spoke briefly with Phil about this before the meeting, but I'm going to ask that we table that, because if you look closely at that, you'll see that none of the actual numbers have been submitted. We have the projected numbers from the original abatement request, but we don't have the actual numbers are blanks. We have no way to tell whether they're in substantial compliance, which is what we actually vote on when we approve a CF1. So Phil has checked with Jay Moore, who is going to work on tracking those numbers down, and will get them to us. The actual approval date for that needs to be by May the 10th. I'm not sure what our next meeting date is. If anybody can look at the calendar there real quick.
May the 10th.
Okay, so I think as long as we do it at the next meeting, we're okay.
I think so, but I'll confirm with Jay.
Let's just double check. So in the unlikely event that we would need to have them done by the 9th, it's possible we could have to have a quick special meeting at some point to approve that. But I just didn't feel like it was right for us to approve the numbers where they're blank on the key section. So what I would like is for someone, if they feel comfortable, to make a motion that we table the CF1s for NHK seating in there.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Motion by Clark and a second by Mike that we table the CF1 for NHK. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. So that just leaves us then with the Bailey Real Estate Holdings. Which again, Bailey, poster child for what an abatement process is supposed to look like. They've been a tremendous partner with the county, a tremendous employer in the county. They've exhibited growth far beyond what was requested at the time of their abatement request. We're nearing the end of that project, if I remember right. Yeah, this is a 2012 project, so this could very well be the last year of the abatement. So that means at that point, from this point on, all of their assessed value is fully taxable. So this is how it's supposed to work. So would entertain a motion to approve this one. A motion by Jeff, second by Joe. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0 on Bailey Real Estate Holdings.
I'm sorry, we have two.
Yeah, I just saw that. I'm sorry. So let me go back and just verify what we just voted on. So I was looking at the first one, which is the 2012 project. So now let's look at the one for the 2015 project. Similar numbers, similar success story. We entertain a motion on that one as well. Got a motion by Mike, second by Joe. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. Okay. Bill, thank you for your time coming over and your explanations.
Thank you all.
Okay. That moves us on to some adjustments we need to make to the salary ordinance. You have a copy of the ordinance in your packet. There are some highlighted areas on there that I'm not sure how well they showed up on the copy. So I have the original here, and I'll try to direct you to the areas that show a change. We've been implementing a change, but we did not get the numbers correct on the salary ordinance for the part-time pay rates for EMS, for the paramedic and EMT rates. So on the very front page, there's always a special notice of what the rates are on those positions. Correct rates are $22.06 for a paramedic and $14.71 for an EMT. So we're catching up on paper with what we've been implementing in practice. So that's on page 1 is the first change. The second change requires a little bit of explanation. You'll notice on the page 2 under the coroner's department, there's a change. It says per diem, $250 per call. That is the result of some discussion that was started with, yeah, Ed's here. Ed, I'll let you make the explanation.
Well, when I submitted my budget for this year, I put in there an on-call rate. Do the FLSA standards, like my deputies commit to being on call. I mean, they're giving up that whole day. So they're entitled to that pay. But speaking with HR, well, I tried to speak with HR, but I have to go through Britt to speak with the HR. And I talked to Alan, we discussed it, and we decided to go with the 250, because it wasn't 150, we decided to go with 250. I've talked to my deputies, they're completely fine with that. But I think we need to do something next year to get like maybe a salary, so that we won't have to worry about any of this.
Yeah, maybe to elaborate just a little bit. So what the response we got back from the new HR vendor was that it would be outside of the norm to pay this on-call rate, but that in the process of doing their investigation of what other coroners departments do in other parts of the state, we found out that our per diem rate was substantially lower than what everybody else pays. And so given the fact that we typically do a salary survey and we try to stay within, the average of what everybody else does, I was perfectly comfortable to move that with that knowledge. We just never specifically looked at that before. So with that knowledge in hand, and we talked and said, for now, let's indicate for now, let's do this as the stopgap measure. Let's move it up to what the average call out rate is in the state. And then we can look for the next budget year for if there's a way to do this a little more efficiently. There are 2 or 3 different ways that coroners departments handle things throughout the state. And one of those ways is to have a small salary for the deputy coroners. So that's something we can look at moving forward. It'd be a little more certain in the budget rather than the open-ended 250 times whatever happens to be.
And that's what's budgeted $8,000, and we should not exceed that.
Yeah, it'd just be how we
Yeah.
structure it, how it's presented. But for now, this gets us in line with the average, just like we try to do with every other position in the county budget. So I'm glad to hear that the deputies were all good with that. So, okay, thanks, Ed. For that.
And also too, one of the bathrooms complete out of the morgue, so within the next week or 2, I'm gonna have like an open house or something like that, so the community can come out and see the morgue if they would like.
Okay, great. Yeah, let us know.
Okay.
The next item is in the section for prosecuting attorney. You'll recall that last year we added so for 2022 there's a new deputy prosecutor in the budget that's never been in there before. And then we've had some changeover in some of the other positions, and there's been some difficulty in getting those positions filled at the salary levels that we had approved. So the prosecutor is requesting that we increase the salary for those positions to $69,000, and he's accomplishing that not with an additional appropriation request, but by transferring some funds from the open positions that have not been expended. We have additional funding that will allow those to be paid at the $69,000 level. Bert, am I correct in saying the prosecutor spoke to the commissioners about this?
Yes.
Okay. So the commissioners are aware. Commissioners, I assume, we're okay with all of that?
Yes, they were.
Yeah. My question to you is whether you're okay with handling it this way, or whether you'd like to have the prosecutor come and make that presentation to us as well. If we're okay with, deference to his opinion and struggles with getting the position, we'll handle it via this salary ordinance. The change in the salary ordinance would be our agreement to that change.
I'll speak on, I'll say that I'm comfortable doing it this way only because
Comfortable or uncomfortable?
I'm comfortable
Okay.
with it because the staff that he has up there now are very experienced and
Okay.
worth the increase. So.
Okay. And then I believe the last item then is the change. I sent you all an email about this. So we're making the change now mid-year on the EMS director to move from a part-time to a full-time position with the recent appointment of Stephen Decker. As we went through that process, the commissioners, allowed me to be a part of that interview process and the selection process. And it became very obvious that it was going to be awkward that we were asking Stephen to take on full-time responsibilities without a commensurate full-time salary. And so we've made the decision to go ahead and let's make that change now. It makes sense. We'll switch with the switch of personnel. We have that money again. We can accomplish it by transferring within the budget because we have some unused monies in the shift supervisor line item that we can move over and augment the director position. So it's not going to require any additional appropriation, but it does require changing the salary ordinance. So we need to make that change to make everything official. So hopefully you're all comfortable with that. I think Stephen's jumped in with both feet and been doing a great job. So I believe that's everything. So those would be the amendments and changes to the salary ordinance. I entertain a motion to approve those. So motion by John and a second by Jeff. We approve the salary changes. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. So I have the official signed copy. I will start it. We also had the annual report from the Redevelopment Commission with the TIF management. The TIF management annual report that's required to be submitted to the state by April the 15th each year and to be presented to the council and commissioners by April the 15th each year. I'm not sure it requires any action, does it? It's just an FYI. But if I can find that here real quick, that report shows the amount of money collected in the TIF district for calendar 2021, and that was $56,141. The Redevelopment Commission expended $32,927 in calendar 2021. So that's what gets reported to the council and commission each year. This year, I would hope we'll see those numbers jump because the pay 22 taxes is the first year that NHK starts paying taxes on the facility out there. So the projections that I saw were that was going to be roughly $190,000 a year that will start coming into the district, the Redevelopment Commission. So now we'll start to generate some money that will allow us to contemplate some actions. Okay. Okay. Thank you. We need to correct that too.
Oh,
Ron's name
yeah,
still on there.
from the beginning of the year.
John knows all about it.
Any questions on the TIF management report? So still kind of at a point where as through 2021, there wasn't much to it, but that'll start to get a little more meaningful and exciting moving forward. And then lastly, and there's a new business column here, the interlocal agreement with Johnson Township. This was approved at the last commissioners meeting and is similar to the agreements we approved last year with Forest, Sugar Creek, and Kirkland Townships, where they contributed some funds to help offset and defray costs for the EMS building at Boylston. Johnson Township is contributing $10,000 to that, and so we formalized that in an interlocal agreement, which basically says that it's a one-time contribution to the facility and that the county is fully operating the facility and the service that comes out of that facility. So our signature here, or actually I believe it's just my signature on that, but the council's agreement to that is the last entity that needs to sign off. We've had the township board, township trustee, and the commissioners all agree. So I'd entertain a motion to approve that interlocal agreement with Johnson Township.
Motion approved.
I think I heard Clark. I'm not sure who was second. I'm going to give it to Joe on the second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. So we thank Johnson Township for partnering with us. Okay, that brings us to old business, additional appropriations. Pull this out for ease. Okay, first up, county general fund. We have $11,070. I did want to ask a question about this one. So the heading on this is it's a commissary grant reimbursement, but we have it in county general. It seems like maybe that's not where we want it. Wouldn't it go to commissary?
We have to put it in there and then issue a check to
Right, check to
commissary.
commissary. Okay, thank you for that clarification. $11,070. That was a grant that we received, a reimbursement grant that we received for some radios. $329.40 was a reimbursement that we received from the federal government for some overtime that one of our officers worked for the Justice Department for ATF, alcohol, tobacco, firearms. And you see all of that supporting documentation there with it. Auditor's office, $825. This was some money that the county deposits money for each eligible employee that selects a health savings account or works through the county's health plan offerings. And we had one where we attempted to put some money in an account. The employee had not set up the account, and so there was no account to receive the money. And the money was returned back to the county. So that's $825 that came back to the county that we're putting back into that line item. And then we had a couple of small rebate checks totaling $176.88 from Parkview Home for our food repurchasing organization that we participate in. So that's our rebate for that reporting period. So that makes county general total appropriation $12,401.28. From our accident report fund in the sheriff's office, request for $569 for a crash reconstruction camera, and then also $538 for a charger for our drone that the sheriff's department has, and then $4,990 for a PIX 4D crash mapping software. That's total $6,097 from the accident report fund. Commissioners request or submit $5,785.50 for appropriation. This is actually money that we received from the Nickel Plate Flats. We cost share the snow removal with them. They pay us for a portion of that, so that is taking their check for the winter's snow removal and putting it back into the line item. Then we use that same line item for the mowing and facility maintenance. Now, the lit public safety, you'll recall we had earlier $329.40 for the overtime that our officer worked for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. This is putting that back into the line that it originally should have been in, because that employee is paid out of the public safety lit. So we're appropriating that line for money back for use in that line. Community corrections, $1,000 from the misdemeanor fund to perform a mini police academy for kids. Sounds like a great program. Working with the Learning Network. Surveyor's office, we had some payments that we received from Carroll County for shared drain funds. You'll see $10 from the Maurice Catron, $917 from the Jackson Lip drain, $223.32 from the J. Milner drain. And then, let's see, I don't know if that's, yeah, that's all of those. That totals $1,150.69. We'll appropriate those funds from Carroll County to the appropriate funds as managed by Dan in our office. And then Dan also makes a request to close out a dormant fund that we have for the McLaughlin drain and to take those funds and put them into our big general drain maintenance fund. That's $3,915.73. Clean up a dormant fund there. A couple of items from the landfill tipping fee fund. One is to actually appropriate the money that we talked about at the end of last year, $22,000 for the Home for the Night, the homeless facility that we talked about giving them some first year startup funds. So this actually appropriates that money and allows the check to be written. And then we did have one, doggone it, I take responsibility for this. We let this one slip through the cracks. We intended to, we talked about it at budget time. We hadn't advertised it. We were going to catch this in January, where we advertised the payment to IU Hospital for our economic development payment to them that we pay each year over a 10-year period. That's $388,888.89. But we didn't get it advertised in January. So now that payment is due, it's come forefront to our mind, and we need to get that appropriated so that we can make that payment to IU Health. That's been in the budget and will continue to be in the budget. It's kind of slipped through the cracks. Let's see. From the infraction deferral fund, the prosecutor is requesting $10,000 that we can use to help the city pay for some law enforcement equipment as requested by the Franklin Police Department. And you can see that supporting documentation. The The manner of execution would be that the county will write a check to the city and that the city will actually pay the vendor. Community Corrections had $240.42, and then another one for $324.04 that were collections from the TREX program. Were delinquent payments were withheld from users' tax returns, tax refunds. So we'll appropriate that back into a line item for Brett's use. Judge Moeller's asking for $600 from his CASA grant to be used on a part-time employee. And then last but not least, from our incentives and sanctions line in the probation budget, Nancy is asking for $1,415 to use those grant funds for probation incentives for probationers. I don't know exactly what those incentives are, but this gives her the ability to provide some incentives. And that is your additional appropriation ordinance 2022-04 for the April meeting. Any questions on any of those? Seeing here none, I entertain a motion to approve. Motion to approve. Okay, a motion by Jeff, second by Joe to approve the additional appropriation ordinance. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 7-0. We do have a couple of transfers that require our approval, beginning with one from the Extension Office for $2,248.32. That's transferring some money from the Nutrition Program Assistant to the Extra Help line item. The Clerk's Office, Ray's asking for $1,500 to go from election postage to the vote center equipment. She's kept us up to date over the months on some things she's done on that equipment and needed a little bit of extra money to finish that purchase out for some of the cases that cover our vote center poll books. Highway Department, we're transferring from the truck driver position 0046 to the truck driver position 0043. That's just taking the remaining salaries from that line item, moving it to the other one. That's $19,715. And then in the Health Department budget, $500 from the education and training to the miscellaneous equipment line item. Do I have? Yes, that's it. Okay. So I would entertain a motion to approve those transfer requests. Motion by Joe. Do I have a second? Second by Mike. All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries 7-0. You have in your packet the financial report as submitted by the auditor. I entertain a motion that we've received that report.
Yes, I have looked it over and make that motion. Okay. I looked at it too.
Motion by Jeff, second by Clark, that we received the report from the auditor for the month of April through the month of March. All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries 7-0. Any council reports? That anybody'd like to make? Okay. Commissioner reports. Anything, Bert, that the commissioners need to bring to the attention of the council?
Not really a lot, Alan. Obviously, we meet actually this afternoon with Envoy in reference to the work and repair work and the shifting of Regions Bank building, etc. It's my opinion, it's been kind of moving slow, so I'm anxious to meet with them today to see where and how we're going to transfer, get things going.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That should be our first time that we hear some numbers.
That's right.
So anxious to hear that.
I likewise am the same. I'm curious to know, just everybody's asking about it. We're running out of space. We don't have any room for most of the departments. So everybody's wanting to get started. Everybody wants to move in by next weekend. And it's probably not going to happen. But that's really it, Alan. There's nothing else on the headlines that I'm aware of.
Okay, great. Any department heads need time with the council? A couple already, but anybody else? Now, come on now. Seriously, no hand? All right, hey.
Once, go twice.
Yeah, going once, going twice. Well, that is maybe a first in my council career. I don't have anything else on the agenda. Does anybody else? have any business of any kind that needs to be brought before the council? Maybe it's the change of scenery. Maybe don't forget to vote. That's why we're here. We have voting in the commissioners room, so make sure everybody gets on. Okay. Seeing and hearing no other business, I'm going to call the meeting adjourned in record time.